Good morning, church. Good morning. It's so good to be with you this morning. For those of you that I have not met, my name is Kathryn Holding, and along with Eric Johnson, we have served as the co-leads of our visioning committee and team over the last 18 months. It is a great joy to be with you all today. In the fall of 2023, we began our process of visioning to prepare for our next season of life together as a church. This work focused on two questions. The first, what is God calling Edenton Street to be? And the second, what is God calling Edenton Street to do? On October the 6th, many of you were here, we gathered as a congregation to celebrate the answer to the first question, what God is calling us to be. And we have seen that reflected in our vision statement, our mission statement, and our core values. You can see those foundational elements in the vision booklet that you received today, and it's sprinkled all throughout our church. We have all been praying over those statements and living into them over the last few months. These statements describe Edenton Street when we are at our best, and they will continue to guide our church's life and work for years to come. Today, we celebrate the answer to the second question, what God is calling us to do over the next decade. Today, the next season of life at Edenton Street begins. Our vision for 2035 is called for connection. This vision reflects months of prayerful study, listening, and discernment by the vision team. We considered a robust set of data about the American church, our local community, and Edenton Street itself. And we listened to you. More than 400 of our members, staff, partners, and neighbors shared your experiences and ideas. Together, we prayed, reflected, dreamed, discussed, and found consensus. We hope that the 10-year vision that we are sharing today challenges you and excites you for this next season of life together. As the vision team studied and listened over the last 18 months, the theme that arose more than any other was connection, or to use a different word, relationship. Specifically, we recognized the promise and potential of strong connection, as well as the pain that arises when people feel a lack of connection. We discerned that over the next decade, God is calling Edenton Street to be a spiritually alive community that transforms lives through connection with God, with each other, and with our neighbors. Each of the priorities within the 10-year vision focuses on a particular element of connection, of relationship, that is essential to a thriving Christian community. Collectively, these priorities reflect how we will pursue our vision, our mission, and our values. The first priority, connection with God, as we read together earlier, recognizes what Jesus reminds us in John 15. We must have a deep relationship with God in order to flourish fully. If we remain in Jesus, if, in keeping with our core values, we are centered on Christ and curious about his teachings, we will produce much fruit. With God's help, there is nothing in this really robust 10-year vision that we cannot achieve. The second priority, connection with each other, focuses on Jesus' commandment in John 13, that we love each other so well that everyone will know that we are his disciples. This commandment speaks to our core values of connectional and compassionate. All are invited, embraced, and belong at God's table, and everyone who joins our community of faith should be able to enjoy healthy, meaningful relationships across all kinds of differences because we seek to follow Christ's example of how to love each other. The third priority, connect with our neighbors, is also about compassion, which by definition is love in action. Jeremiah tells the exiles in Babylon that God wants them to promote the welfare of the city where he has sent them into exile and to pray for it because their future depends on its welfare. That's our calling as well, not just to help our neighbors or even to serve them, but to seek their welfare through relationships, recognizing that our future, both as individuals and as a church, depend on it. And the fourth and final priority is a strong foundation for connection. This priority recognizes that in order to fully realize the vision for connection to God, connection with each other, connection with our neighbors, we must do as Jesus commands us to do in Luke 6, to put his words into practice, digging deep and laying our foundation on bedrock. The strategies in this fourth priority are designed to strengthen our foundation as a church in a way that is true to the teachings of Christ. The visioning booklet, which hopefully you all received, I failed to bring one up with me, but hopefully you all received it on your way in. This booklet dives into each of these four priorities, setting out strategies and tactics for how we as a church will actively live into them. Please take this booklet home with you, read it closely, and spend time in prayer, asking God how you may commit to our vision for 2035. After the service today, join us for a potluck in Carr Hall for a lunch celebration and an opportunity to connect with lay servants and staff who can share more with you about how you can get involved in bringing this exciting vision to life. Friends, we truly hope that this vision sparks excitement in you to try new things at Edenton Street. And we encourage you to be open to how God is calling you to participate in our next season of life. And finally, as I mentioned a moment ago, a strong foundation is critical for our church to be able to live into this vision. We ask that you please prayerfully consider your financial commitment to Edenton Street and come to Commitment Sunday on February 2nd with your commitment cards ready to support our church.
Good morning. Thank you again for being here today. As we conclude the visioning process and begin our next season, we would like to offer two closing reflections. The first is that the church, and Edenton Street in particular, is needed more than ever and needs us more than ever. The vision team has done our work at a time of uncertainty for our world and our country, for Christianity, for United Methodism, for Edenton Street, and for many of us individually. There will be challenges ahead as we do the hard work of deepening our connection as a congregation and building a strong foundation on which to pursue the boldest aspects of the 10-year vision. During the visioning process, we have reflected on another time of great uncertainty, the earliest days of the Christian church. On October 6th, we described how Jesus called the disciples to be salt and light, truly different in a way that brought hope to the world. The church grew as the early Christians sought connection with God, with each other, and with their neighbors. And that's our calling as well, to evolve and move forward boldly in a way by returning to our roots. Kathryn described how Scripture teaches the importance of connection within a faith community, and history and science tell us the same thing. A church is just one example of what social scientists call an institution, which the author Yuval Levin describes as the durable forms of our common life, the frameworks and structures of what we do together. Levin notes that institutions are formative. They shape our habits and character. They give each of us a role in the world, and they enable us to form positive relationships through which we can help others. As it turns out, many scholars have found that institutions are the most important driver of a nation's prosperity. I promise you, institutions will form us, you and me, as well as future generations. The question is, which institutions? We live in a time when many of our nation's institutions have lost trust or eroded in various ways. For example, the Vision team reviewed research from a landmark book, The Great Dechurching, which found that 40 million Americans no longer attend church. 10 million because of pain they or a loved one experienced within the church, and 30 million more casually because of life change or competing priorities. In addition to the pain experienced by the 10 million, the dechurching phenomenon and the fact that millions of Americans have never truly experienced church to begin with brings with it a particular tragedy. One of the best antidotes for loneliness and better health and well-being is active participation in church. In fact, Dr. Tyler Vanderweel, who's got a mouthful of a title, he is the director of the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard's Institute for Quantitative Social Science. He has wondered provocatively if, given the evidence for the positive health effects of participation in a faith community, our healthcare systems should be sharing this information with their patients. Given these circumstances, Yuval Levin argues that we live in a time to build or rebuild, a time to recommit to make American institutions healthier and more trustworthy, not perfect, healthier and more trustworthy. That's what God has called Edenton Street to do, to build a spiritually alive community that transforms lives, to build a community through which more people connect with God, each other, and our neighbors, to know, love, and serve those who agree with us and those who don't, those who are marginalized and those who are powerful, those who are like us and those who are not. Friends, that will only happen if we act. As Pastor Kevin reminded us last Sunday, Christian hope isn't wishful thinking or a belief that things will simply get better. It's a decision we make every single day. We choose to act. Edenton Street's 10-year vision is not passive. It's full of opportunities and challenges for each of us. The vision will push us to be more like the salt Jesus calls us to be. And we will only be able to fully achieve it if each one of us commits. Jesus tells us that in my Father's house has room to spare. If that weren't the case, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? Friends, there is a place for you at Edenton Street. There is a place for our neighbors. A community to find belonging and meaning, joy and peace alongside a bunch of other unpolished, imperfect people. Will you help us build that community? Will you commit to help fulfill this vision? The other reflection is this. Visioning is, at some level, about the pictures we see in our minds. Today, and as we move forward, we encourage you to keep in your mind 3 pictures. First, think of the saints and servants who over 214 years have built and rebuilt this church with their time, talent, financial resources, and in some cases with their bare hands. Think of how they worshiped, taught, cared, and served. Can you see them? As we move into our next season, let's remember and honor them. This vision carries the best of their legacy with us. Second, think of the people right now in this congregation, across our parish, and beyond who are suffering. Some are sick, grieving, or lonely. Some feel excluded and unloved, wondering if they matter to anyone. Some are adults, worried about their children or loved ones. Some are children or youth, wondering how they will flourish or even survive in a daunting world. Some, both at Edenton Street now and among those who might visit us in the future, fear that they will be judged for all kinds of reasons. Some suffer in other ways. Can you see them? This vision asks us to consider not just how much our neighbors might need God or God working through us, but also to consider how much we need them to become the community God is calling us to be. Finally, imagine this building and these 2 city blocks in 3, 10, or even 20 years. Imagine someone from our parish, our city, or elsewhere in this state passing along Edenton Street. Consider what it would mean for them to pause and say, wow, there's something different about that church and those people. Maybe the person will be curious. Maybe they will find some reason to hope, to wonder if, just maybe, there is a God. Perhaps they too will want to connect. Can you see it? This vision challenges us to create that reality. If we keep these pictures in our minds, if we are inspired by the early Christians, if we lean in and commit to answer God's call for our church, whether we've been here 50 years or 50 minutes, if we invite, welcome, and engage our neighbors in this effort so that all of God's children in our community know they can belong here, then the next season for Edenton Street will be among its brightest. And we will continue to be a community through which God works miracles.